I'd like to reiterate thanks to everyone for putting this wonderful series together. I've had the pleasure to be up here a few times watching some of you in the audience read, I know, and it's been a real joy to be part of it and reading tonight. Many of these poems are from a collection called Something for Everyone, and that will become clear why they're from that collection as I go along. Now I can't see it. It's easier. This first one was written in memory of Aga Shahid Ali, who was a poet. A group was putting together a festschrift for him, which I was not familiar with that word, but it was a collection, a tribute, a celebration of his life. And so I wrote this poem in his memory. It's called 3 Seasons of Conflict. 1. Last night, between skirmishes, we crept away from our lakeside camp and carved lines of love on the ice with knives and the tips of bayonets. Dawn came, the warm sun rose and read our poems, its critical eye erasing the rhymes. When we returned the next night, the lake bore scars, our day-old scribblings welted over. The youngest of us, a drunken infantryman, cursed such an abject spurning and stamped his foot, triggering the lake's reply, a whooping boom, followed by a fissure and a split. Each night that followed, you set out across the ice, wordless and lost to us. You slept on opaque surfaces, distrusting transparency, yet returned in time for morning lineups, questioned but never daring to explain your blackened, frost-bitten lips. 2. The corporal ordered the heaviest private to sit on the insurgent's chest and listen for the outrush of breath, the crush of ribs and collarbone, the soft surrender of lungs and heart, while another soldier stopped up the nostrils and plugged the windpipe with clods of mud and stones wedged in back of the teeth. The bodies, he explained, his shoulders drooping to mimic the weight of deep water. Stay down longer. Don't float up or dance about in the current. I paused like a foreigner, confused by arcane custom. He pantomimed a breaststroke for clarity. Surface, swim back up, as if spirits could push and part water. I listened to his explanation and now can't repress it. The story fills with air and rises of its own accord, bloated as it is with the stolen breath of its own retelling. 3. The chaplain dead, you addressed the troops with pennants pulled from your mouth, silk and felted cashmere. Crafted as prayer flags, some later unfurled as banners in battle, royal blues and saffron yellows stained by the luxury of blood that war affords. On your return, you held them out like tortured comrades, laid them on the bed of the empty page. You resurrected alphabets from the broken bones of their letters, stitched together first words, then sentences that raced to the margins unapologetically. You made of your body a character meaning one thing and one thing only, love. You stood before us, arms open, despite our suspicions that each wink was an instance of blindness, each smile a fracture that might outlast us. I was hoping that wasn't the last page of the poem. It wasn't. This poem is called Decimate. It's for one of my favorite writers, Jeffrey Nunberg. Some of you may have heard his pieces on language on NPR. And he likes to take a word and think about it. So this one is about the word decimate. In the archaic sense, the word meant killed 1 in 10, a grotesquely specific definition. History, we are told, often repeats itself, and in its words regurgitates too, spits in its own wind. Perhaps 10% was the threshold beyond which Reich or empire might crumble, and so daggers were drawn, some accused men told to count off by tens, and one lucky boy singled out from the remainder. Pick a number from 1 to 10, a clever general directed, a true maverick. The child, being a 5th, chose 5. He thought he knew how this game was played. He reasoned that no soldier spared the majority, that the goddess of wisdom and warfare always favored the chosen. All fives look up, the general commanded, and they looked, lifting their eyes toward whatever cloud passed at that moment, exposing their throats to the dagger's cut. Some definitions lie buried along with the dead, hidden, pushed down the page, repressed in discourse. The brutish few try to cover their tracks, but the learned man can see a hoofprint in the dirt, however faded, and know the cloven heart of the beast that left it. This one isn't dedicated to anyone, but I'll dedicate it to the New England Review because they published it, so thank you. It's called House of Representatives. It's part of a series. Others are called Chamber of Commerce, Library of Congress. You get the idea. But they're not political, I hope, maybe. House of Representatives. 1. On my apartment walls, paintings of lamps, and where there should be paintings, lamps. In my closets, boxes of clippings, letters, and photographs, forgeries, all. In the mirrors, a million inadmissible images. In desk drawers and journals, juicy lies I half intended to turn true one day, now faded and turning less likely. 2. I was my own ambassador once, now the country's name escapes me. Unclaimed flags border the room, scrawled pages, bloodied handkerchiefs. Sick and surrendering, my fingers fumble on treaty signatures, my autograph a pulled thread, unraveling. The editors tell the readers what they want to read, and the books oblige by slapping themselves shut. 3. On the talk shows, my big juicy lies, and viewers who wanted to seem to have been and feel so beaten. Confused, my declarations resisted interpretation. The trumpets sounded either reveille or retreat. We forgot which was which. We gave up. We flipped to the answer key and brushed aside this possible motto, in typos we trust. 4. In the world outside, the wildfire misunderstood the spark, and so we doused ourselves with holy water and rewrote the history of forests in charcoal and ash. We pine, we burn for you, oh my love, oh my love. 5. On my skin, rants inked long ago in fierce tattoo, but when I am dragged back to the chambers naked, I claim to be a foreigner, to be unfamiliar with my own language. Stretched on the rack, the letters pull apart, and the skin gives up its expected secrets, its lifetime of desires, and explicit truth beyond what anybody could bear. That's the dark part of the program. Take a breath. This one's a love poem. The hardest thing in the world to write until you love somebody. So this is something for everyone. This one is for my husband, Bud. It's called The Drop. The lake lifts up and flies toward the shore, out past the swimmers and sunbaskers, beyond the surfers, sailors, and snorkelers, to settle on the breast of the ocean, one body lost in the other, their collision more shimmer than splash, the way my life has dropped into yours, water into water, waves and tides synchronized. One of my favorite poets is Heather McHugh, and one of the reasons I love her is that she takes science and makes it poetic and also makes it fun. She has a great sense of humor, despite the darkness of some of her work. So there is a scientific term in this poem that you need to know. It's called spit take. Does everyone know what a spit take is? Some people don't. You don't watch The Daily Show, obviously. I was going to demonstrate for you, but I won't. It seems uncouth now to think of it. But it's when you have something in your mouth and someone says something totally incredulous and you spit it out. So imagine that. It's in. This is called Hungry Worlds. Underground, tree roots push about, tap into aquifers and siphon nitrogen, recycle decay and displace the planet. Ants carry dirt to the surface, intent on turning the earth inside out. Small wonder, then, that shells from ancient seabeds litter ridge lines and summits. Given time, any living world will swallow itself whole, then spit itself back up, the way seas feed storms and then brace for the violent backwash. As brackish clouds disperse, the sun rages on in roiling spasms, spewing its light and heat across the cold cosmos. Bent over his eyepiece, the astronomer scans cloudless skies for signs of other stars, especially those that have called it quits and shut down their provident furnaces. For some, death stages one last dazzling spectacle. For others, however, death's a fizzle, a celestial spit take. One practiced hand trains the lens, while the other breaks open pistachios, their empty shells accumulating underfoot. With a persistence almost imperceptible to the naked eye, one tiny ant pushes against the salted husk, straining to move it outside, where his million companions wait to be fed. And since I'm talking about food, I figured I would finish with this. Because of the weather, I half expected there to be a power outage tonight, and this would have been in honor of that. The word feed here is not used in terms of food, but as in a feed, like a news feed. This is called dark feed. A snap of light, a blight of static, and the dimming plasma screen stares back dumbly in their darkened den. TV, Wi-Fi, phone, all dead. They sit for a moment in disconnected silence, unable to check for breaking news flashes or scan the crawl for emergency updates. She comments on the recent string of unseasonable storms, listens for any corroborating rumble in the distance. He wonders aloud about solar flares, mentioned having read how mice like to chew through electrical wiring. In the dark outside, the crickets rub their legs together and maintain their trill. She recalls a bit of country wisdom rediscovered in an almanac, a formula to determine the temperature outside. To pass the time, they count and do the math in their heads. Chirps per 14 seconds plus 40. 75, 75, 76, 77. Thanks very much.